Hi, I was just about to go live. Can you see me? There you are. Yaroon, can you see me?
I can see, I can hear you, yes.
Okay, good morning. Sort of.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad you're joining us. I know a lot of people are going to be excited to hear this conversation.
I'm excited for it. Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. I've been looking forward to it. So again, everyone, this is Yaroon DeWitt. He is a certified level 3 in QHHT, which stands for Quantum Healing Hypnosis Therapy. Yaroon, I'm just going to read here some of your intro that I took from your website, and it's quite impressive. So you're certified in Reiki, also certified in emotional freedom technique, electromagnetic field energy balancing technique, quantum touch healing. You have a BA in art therapy and an MA in spiritual psychology. And combined, that's probably over 5,200 hours of experience studying energy healing and therapeutic techniques. And you work with individuals, you work in group settings, and easily have helped over 1,000 clients in your sessions. So that is quite a lot to start with. And so from there, we just say hello and jump in. And I guess to start with, how would you, probably the most common question I think people ask is, what is past life regression? I mean, I know when I mention it to friends and clients, I get one of two reactions. One is just like blank stare, like no idea at all what that could possibly mean, or just like blown away, like, wow, tell me everything about it. So
Right.
I'll let you, give your definition, and we'll start with that.
All right. So thank you for the introduction. Thank you very much. So past life regression, the technique that I practice, QHHT, quantum healing hypnosis technique, is a way for us to heal and to upgrade, to get unstuck in our current lifetime by accessing experiences of our own soul in different lifetimes. So the term past life regression is kind of updated throughout the years because what we found out through doing this work, I was trained by Dolores Cannon, and she herself and then all of her students found out that from the perspective of the soul, there is no such thing as past lives, that time is a construct for our three-dimensional experience here on the planet, but that from the perspective of the soul or source, there's no such thing. So from the perspective of the soul, it seems like we're splitting off into different lifetimes all at once, and we're just in there learning what we want to learn. And so when we do a regression, then we're tapping into the energy of another expression of our own soul. And it's, of course, it's our own soul that guides the whole process. So it's always very, very healing. So it's past life regression is not just past life tourism. It's just not for the conscious mind to have a cute experience and to figure out like what you've been doing in different lifetimes. But it's first and foremost a healing experience.
Mm-hmm. I think that is important to know that, like you said, it's not just tourism for your current consciousness to kind of just poke around and see what you've done for the fun of it. It's a therapy. It's a type of therapy, and it also can be quite an intensive type of therapy. And something that I read also on your website that I thought was really helpful for someone that maybe is not familiar with this type of work and this type of healing is you described it as being quite healing within both the physical and non-physical dimensions of our being. It reconnects us to our source where answers and healing energy are accessed. And so that makes sense to me because we figured out I had a session with you about 2 years ago now, which it doesn't seem like 2 years ago at all, because so much of what I accessed and I learned through the session, I'm still breaking down. I'm still using to heal, pattern behaviors that I've had. I still am kind of chewing on these bits of information that I had access to. That's helping me daily. And so would you say that's pretty common?
Yeah, so that's how I see it working. It works different per person because we're all individuals with different, energetic makeups for different people. So, but that is a very common experience. So that it keeps working. It's like an energetic sort of reset or an upgrade, and then it trickles or percolates through our different systems, and we become more and more aware of ourselves in this process. But it's like an upgrade that you're getting, and then all the systems need to balance out, and your life expresses accordingly.
So I guess for people that aren't familiar, you want to take us through what a session typically, just sort of like the broad strokes, so that people that have not had a session before can kind of have a starting out point of what we're referencing, and then we'll do a little bit deeper dive.
All right, so sessions last between 4 and 5 hours, and it starts by people compiling a list of questions that they want answers to or healing for, and those you're going to bring into your session. And then you meet your practitioner, in this case me, and we sit down in my office right here. And first we talk about your life for the very first hour and a half to 2 hours. It's a very detailed process where we discuss all the events that happen in your life. And we do this for me to get a more thorough backstory to your life that allows me to see what patterns are up or what themes are playing for you. And also to build rapport, to get comfortable with each other, which is important because of the hypnotic state that we're going to be working in later. So we do this for an hour and a half to 2 hours. Then there's a bathroom break, and then the client lays down on a very comfortable padded massage table. All of your clothes are on except for your shoes are off. You'll have a light cover covering you. We'll just make you very, very comfortable. That's the most important. Then I'll take you through the hypnotic induction, and then that accesses your higher self. It'll first provide you with the most appropriate experiences from these different lifetimes. So I'm not guiding that session. I'm not guiding the content. This is your higher self providing you with the most appropriate experiences. So this can be anything. It can be like galactic lifetimes, energy beings, creative being lifetimes. It can be human lifetimes, very mundane, or even historical figures. It can be all kinds of alien lives. It's also possible on different dimensions, different levels of physicality, sometimes just light bodies, or kind of more physical, traveling in spaceships. Animal lives as part of the atmosphere, or plants, or insects. It can be anything. So we never know what we're going to get. I'm a Gemini, right. So I'm not good with routine in my life. I like to have variety. So this is a perfect job for me. I never know what's walking into my office door when I'm starting to work with somebody, what we're going to get. So
right.
It can be anything. So we do this for about 45 minutes to an hour. And this relaxes the mind to a point where then the higher self can be accessed. So after exploring different lifetimes, I then call forth the higher self, and first start to ask it questions about the scenes that people were shown. Why were they shown these scenes? What was the whole point of it? Because some of it might not make a lot of sense to our conscious understanding. And then we'll get all of the questions answered that people have brought in with them. And that concludes the session.
Right. And so I can add to that as like a different perspective, having been through it and not knowing not really what to expect, but so, so for me, it was you're hypnotized essentially, right? And so it feels like you're kind of like in a waking sleep kind of feeling, like when you take a really deep nap and you can hear things going on, but you're asleep. That's kind of what it feels like. And at least for me, I was able to see a lot of different life in my past, and I was able to feel, you know, what I felt at those times. And sorry, I'm entertaining a toddler at the same time. And so you feel like you're being dropped into almost like a dream sequence. And I hear your voice and I hear you asking, what do you see now? And in a sense you're guiding, in that I feel like you're there with me, kind of making sure that, you know, that I felt really safe. I felt really protected. I felt like there was someone there that was in control of the things that were being asked. And something that I thought was really interesting was that I felt like I wasn't just like a flowing, you know, just saying whatever. Like I had control over what I wanted to say or not say. So in that sense, I felt like if I really wanted to, I could keep things private to myself. But for me, in my experience, and to get the most out of the experience, I personally chose to just say whatever came through. And then I lost my train of thought. And then what I thought was really interesting was, like you said, after that point, and I had the questions that I had given to you beforehand, and you were asking questions. It feels like when you say higher source, that to me, like, it felt like you're just tapping into my subconscious and you're asking like things that I already know the answers to. It's just that my current self kind of blocks a lot of this. It blocks, kind of puts me in a box sort of things that I do or don't do, or it keeps me limited to breaking out of these patterns or behaviors or things. Like, you know, that saying, we're like we stand in our own way. It was kind of like that. Like, you kind of go past those blockages and start asking our authentic self questions. And it was so fascinating. Do you agree to like that?
It might be the best description of the experience that I've heard. Like, this is really well worded. So it is. I mean, it's kind of different from one person to the next, but this is the most common experience, I would say, that you just described. So it's not like the you that you know yourself as is going to vacate your body and something else is going to drop in that feels or that knows it all. It's just like, we're kind of bypassing our conscious mind thinking, our day-to-day consciousness that is prone to making decisions based on insecurities or influences from the outside, being reactive. We're going straight to the source, which, you know, we all have. We are part of God, source, creator. So we're going to go to that part, and that is who you are at your core. So it's always there. It's not up on a cloud and it needs to be like lured down for this session. You know, it's really, we're going to the core of your being, and that's where all the answers are. But that's a really beautiful, detailed way of describing what it can feel like.
It also felt validating. Like, I wrote a couple of words of what it most felt like afterwards, and it felt very validating. It felt a little bit like a wake-up call in how to move forward with the rest of my life. And it felt very freeing, some of it, to have these answers. So do people kind of is that pretty common ways of describing the experience?
Yeah, that's the most common experience that people have after a session. I see people wake up with like almost this weight being dropped, like they've lost like spiritual weight or energetic weight. And then what you just described, that is a very common experience. Yeah.
And I would imagine this is the most common question you get. What is my life purpose? Or why did this or that happen? Or
Yeah, so yeah, part of the list of questions, the top one is usually, what am I here for? What is my life purpose? And why was I raised by this particular family that, was difficult, challenging people's lives, and then all kinds of issues, physical, emotional, spiritual, energy issues. But yeah, purpose is usually at the top of the list.
yeah, definitely. I can understand that. And one of the quotes that I used to describe our session was, and you said it to me too in person, was that nothing about us is a mistake. We're here, very intentional, and we're here to infuse into the world what makes us different and unique. And that just like, that's just like everything. That's just everything, right? It's everything that I believe in and why I do what I do. So to hear that from you, and I just love that. And if people take nothing else away from our conversation, I would love for them to really grab onto that. And from someone that has seen or heard thousands and thousands of different experiences, been very connected to thousands of clients that are looking for answers, and you say nothing about us is a mistake.
Yeah, but this is my truth. This is what I learned in my own journey and through working with over 1,000 people, that it really became an experience for me that we're all here to express source or God or creator. I don't know what word people are comfortable with, as you. And this is radical, given the way that we've been raised in this world. We've been raised, with the idea that we need to be something or become something or fit something or belong somewhere or be good enough or get our worthiness or approval through working hard for it, whether it is to fit into our society or our peer group or our
how much money we
culture.
make.
Exactly. So it's kind of the reverse. And so the awakening that's happening on the planet right now, which there is an awakening happening, is people like you and lots of other people that are starting to feel that there's something wrong with the way things have been going. And the awakening that's happening is now that we're moving from a mind-based orientation towards life, where we think about ourselves and life in conditioned labels and categories about life. So it's not an actual experience, but it's through our thinking and our beliefs about things that we experience, our environment. What's happening right now is that we're dropping into our heart. Mm-hmm. And so how that happens, from my perspective, is that we are prompted to create more space in our body for ourselves. And that is done through loving yourself. Because what has happened to, I think, all of us, most of us, is that we're pushed out of our body after we come in as a little baby. When you look into a baby's eyes, you can see that they know, as an embodied experience, that they are part of source. You can see this, And then our conditioning starts by well-meaning parents. They do the best that they know how, but being faced with conditioning in a culture that is not based on the understanding that we're all unique and that we're here to bring our uniqueness to the planet. You can think about living in the United States. We're all supposed to be white and straight and male and masculine and Christian. There's definite preferences for certain ways of being. And I'm not saying this to shame or to make wrong any of those aspects, because they are expressions of God as well. But as a culture, it is not affirming to anything else that doesn't match that tight little, convenient bracket that, that's there. So it's like we're having to rework the parts of ourselves, or recover the parts of ourselves that we have had to demonize or make not good enough or disregard.
Kind of alter. It's like
what?
that we've been taught to alter, just constantly alter and constantly strive.
Yes.
With this type, right? And with this kind of takes us back. It kind of reverses that feeling.
Right.
And at least for me, it allowed me to tap into so much so that I actually cried. I cried while I was, while you were talking to my subconscious, because my heart could literally feel what it felt like to feel completely validated, completely seen, and feel like completely I'm being who I was meant to be, like that freeing. And it
That is,
just felt, I mean, yeah. So thank you. I mean, I've told you before, thank you so much, because now, like I said, the reverse, where instead of striving for that in that box that you said, like we kind of spent most of our life being conditioned, and that feeling of striving and why am I here and I'm not good enough, I have since replaced that with a new benchmark, with a new feeling to always want, which is that feeling, right? Like, is this giving me that feeling that I know I deserve to feel? I know I deserve to feel validated, to feel special and heard, just because I am who I am. And
right.
so now it's like I have this new benchmark in place that kind of, it kind of, you know, helps me, a new compass in life, if that makes sense. And
Totally.
right. And I just feel like that is what I feel like this therapy can do for people.
Yeah, I mean, you word it beautifully. You're like my star client, the way that you describe it. This is really amazing because, I mean, this is really what my life purpose is. This is what the journey that I went on to recover my own authenticity. And it's an ongoing journey. I'm not done with it. But having done a measure of that journey, I now, I help other people to do the same thing. And you described it so beautiful because it's like we're hearing or we're feeling the truth in our own being that we can give ourselves permission to start listening to it instead and to give up on the striving for betterment through checking all these boxes that we have learned are our savior, our way to progress in life. And so when we do that, when we allow our focus to disengage from external notions of validation, from the voices of the world, to starting to listen to what's happening on the inside, to validate all that, you know, we're parenting ourselves in ways that, you know, our parents might have not have been able to be there for us. We're starting to emotionally nurture who we are. And when that happens, it is freeing because what is there? There's beauty, there's magnificence, there is so many resources, and there's joy. You know, this joy is the easiest way to start relating back to yourself. To
Okay,
just
say you're saying that, you say.
what?
Say you're saying joy for.
What joy for fuck's sake?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I tell my clients always because we've even been disconnected from authentic joy sometimes. You know, we forget what it's like to have joy as the way that we had joy as kids. We think that that is just something that is part of growing up, and then we have to let that go because we have to become serious adults and, you know, join the rat race and all that stuff. But it is actually joy for fuck's sake that reconnects you to who you are. And what that means is joy that doesn't come through reward, not the joy that you get when you work out in the gym really hard to get the Instagram approved hot body, or to alter your appearance, alter your way of being, to just kind of manipulate opinions of people about you to get this perceived sense of validation or acknowledgement. So the joy that I'm talking about are the joys that are just there, the simple joys in life. It doesn't have to, you know, work really hard to save up to go on a cruise around the world. It just means the joys that you can experience right now. That's listening to your heart and say, what feels good to me now? Like going outside, looking at the sky, or listening to the wind blowing through the trees, or being in nature, or being with animals, or dancing, or just being exuberant, you know, jamming out to a beautiful song in your car while you're at the light, or
Yeah. No, I was going to say
just simple things.
it's a very quiet joy. It's
Yes.
because I've been experiencing it more, and it's like instead of feeling heavy and like aimless, and it's a very quiet, deep joy. It's very light and it's simple. It's almost always in the simplest things.
Yes. That's
And
lovely.
it's just like, it's so peaceful, and you can like down to the core, you just like, and I say it's so simple and peaceful because it is like, you know, I have the pleasure of being around a child almost all day because of my son. And it is like that that peaceful joy that they're just happy to be alive and doing what it is that they're doing without any self-judgment, any negative talk, any of those things. And so it's peaceful and quiet in that sense, where it's not these big fireworks or big, you know, big party. It's, at least for me, but it's deep. And it,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
I agree. It's like the joys where you take yourself with you. Like it's like you're in communion and you're being with yourself, and it's enjoyable. There's no external parameters needed to validate this joy. It just is. And so the more that you allow for that, the more that you push out all the shoulds and the have tos in your life, and you allocate space and time for you to experience this, more of you gets a chance to show up. More of your wisdom and more of your purpose will unfold, because, you know, purpose is not a magical drop description that's somewhere in the ethers that we have to work really hard at to understand or get at. You are your purpose. You know, all of you is your purpose. So the parts of you that you've had to disregard and demonize and not good enough, those parts of you actually hold what your life purpose is, because when you regain access to them, just as you did when you were a small baby, you are just going to want to be involved by doing the things that you love to do most. And guess what? You will do these things and find things to do that are unique to you, and you will give them your own unique flair, your own unique brand. And this is how you contribute to raising consciousness on the planet, part of the awakening. This is how you show up in ways where you're kind of showing different examples that are beyond the limited concepts and labels and categories that we've learned to see life through. So for myself, for instance, I had a journey with gender. So I grew up in a very small village in the Netherlands, and there were little boys, little girls, and the little boys were always engaged in violent play. They were shooting toy guns and fighting with swords, and they were always about violence. I couldn't do that kind of playing. It felt like I was doing drag. It felt really off to me. So I played with little girls. I learned how to play hopscotch, and I learned how to sew little quilted sleeping bags for my stuffed animals. But because I was odd in that community and there was nobody to support me in it, so I just judged myself for my fucked up sense of gender. I thought it was fucked up. So and this stayed with me for a long time in my life. Until my 40s, I thought there was something wrong with me because I could not do the limited expression of masculinity that's been present on the planet, you know. So I went into this little journey where I learned to embrace myself as I am. I'm in a man's body. I'm completely comfortable. But through the eyes of the world, you know, I might be unlabelable in terms of how I express my gender. And so for me, to show up as myself, just as I hope that everybody else will kind of find their freak flag and wave it proudly, you know, just by showing up, you're showing up as an example of freedom from all these limited understandings of life. And, you know, it kind of trips people into thinking about themselves in a different way, to inspire them to start loving who they are outside of the limited confines that they might have taken on as a result of being raised in this culture on this planet.
Right. Yeah. And some other things that you've said is that that living your life purpose is mostly about, like you said, loving yourself, defragmenting our attachment to understanding our worthiness through the eyes of the world we've been brought up in. Yeah. That is something that you promote. And then also you said that because you can kind of tap into the feeling and trust, you say that you learn to trust your own experience, and that when you trust that, you kind of have a sense that everything is more scripted, and it allows you then to really invest and trust and set aside those restrictions and those boundaries and just embrace yourself more and who you are.
Yeah, so the trust happens when it doesn't really come through knowing that it's scripted, that your life is scripted. But for me, the trust comes by embracing, when you learn to recover more parts of yourself, or when you learn to trust yourself more, you learn to trust God or life, because that is who you are. You know, you might have heard these sages say, like, when you know yourself, you know God. It's really true. So when you go on this journey to allow yourself to feel your feelings and to base your life on what your intuitive sense of self tells you is good for you, and the more that you do that, the more that you reclaim or recover these parts of yourself, instead of having to be vigilant and trying to control external circumstances so you can feel safe, so you can feel like you belong, you start to defragment yourself or your understanding of life by living life more in the here and now, because you don't need to foresee the future and prepare for things. You can just be in the here and now and know that you are guided because you are it, you are God. So you don't have to be vigilant. You can just sink in the moment and be here now. It also means, because people go then, well, what about, you know, like diseases or dying, all that stuff? It also means that, you know, trusting that your life is done when it's done. You know, it doesn't mean not to wear your mask or to not use a seatbelt. It just means that your purpose, that you're here to serve a purpose as you, and then when it's over, it's over. You know, and death, you know, from my perspective, death is not such a serious matter. You know, for the people that are left behind, it is very serious. I've had losses in my life, but as a soul dropping the body, you know, it's often on to other adventures.
Do you find that, like I said, for me, it just had so much clarity and gave me so many, not like specific answers. It's not like you're handed over these specific answers to everything, but it did allow for a lot of clarity that then allowed for me to make more informed decisions, I would say, about my future, about how I behave in the present, for myself. And do you find that people have big shifts, like mindset shifts, or even like shifts with their jobs, with their relationships, like big shifts after having sessions with you?
Yeah, it's like we're getting our compass fixed, you know, in those sessions. So a different truth, your own truth, will start to emerge, and when it sort of ripples out into the physical existence of our lives, people will start to make other changes, you know, and this doesn't have to go overnight. It can just like slowly and gradually, whatever is comfortable. And doesn't mean you have to leave your shitty job that you might have been in overnight. It just starts by, you know, fostering more self-care.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to realize that this job is not serving you. It doesn't feel good, but you don't have the money or the freedom to just jump ship. But that you will start to, you know, do more stuff that you love to do for yourself. So to gradually shift into a life that feels more like your own.
Yeah, more like your own, and just richer in different ways.
Yes.
And so that seems like a good, unless people have more questions. I'm surprised there weren't like questions popping up constantly. I thought for sure. But so again, before we conclude, we're here with Jeroen. He is level 3 QHHT practitioner, past life regressionist. I know, I'm almost done.
Hey.
And so I'm going to close out kind of in conclusion with maybe like a little bit of rapid fire questions, like just simple, like let me see. So what's the best practice you use? Okay, what's the daily practice that you use to heal from the outside in? Something you can share with viewers. And it could be super simple.
For me, it's being in nature. That's when I feel myself the most. So during COVID
with
now, and with Kitty, yes, my cat, yes, that's with my cat. But being in nature, sometimes with my cat, that's where I feel myself the most expensive.
I love your cat.
Okay, he's a cat. This one is a cat person, so he loved that answer.
I'm not a cat.
How about a little bit of advice for us about the best way to build authentic friendships?
To listen to yourself. So if friendships do not feel expansive, if you're being used as a shoulder to cry on all the time or to be dumped on, and there's no reciprocity. It's starting to again to listen to how do you feel within relationships, within your life, and just start validating your feelings. So if it doesn't feel good to be with certain people for whatever reason, all you need to know it doesn't feel good. That's enough for you to say, okay, this might not work out for me. You might be able to address it with them, and if they listen to you and change their ways, you can still have a friendship. But if they say like, what are you talking about? This is just what we do, then it's time to say goodbye.
And then how about, what are you reading? What are you reading lately? Anything interesting because I'm a huge reader. I love to read. So
I used to be an avid reader. I can't do it anymore. I'm just listening to Audible. So yeah. I'm listening to The Law of One, the Raw Materials, which is kind of it rubs shoulders with Dolores Cannon's work.
Okay.
And I just bought a book that's sitting. I've leafed through it. It's the Detox book from Anthony Williams.
Okay.
Just to give
so Anthony Williams, yeah. The Detox book, and
yes.
The Law of One are good.
The Law of One, yeah. The Raw Materials.
And so, and lastly, I love to promote the community and support what you're doing. And something that you're doing right now are Zoom sessions called Life Purpose Activation. So yeah. Do you want to give like a quick kind of rundown of like what that is and how someone can connect with you if they are interested in that?
Oh, thank you. You've really done your research. I'm really impressed. So yes, next to regressions, I do online life purpose activations. It's a 2-hour session where I help you to tap into your feeling about your life and to help you see how, the limitations that you're experiencing in your life are not your fault, but it's as a result of the ways that you've been brought up. And then I help to emphasize or enhance your sense of self, like we just talked about, and to listen to what it says in terms of what your life purpose is. That's the short of it.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So I thank you so much again, and please let us know the best way to connect with you, like your Instagram, your website.
Thank you. So yeah, the best way is through Instagram. You can send me a direct message. But in my Instagram profile, you also see my website, which is another way you can either contact me or book session. But it's really all in my Instagram profile, so that's the easiest way.
And I love that that you're not afraid to connect. Like same with me. Like folks, if you go on and you try to schedule an appointment, like your session, like I did, you called me like right away on the phone, like voice call. And I was like, yeah, okay, like let's do this, like you don't shy away from connecting with people. Like you're here to really, and that's what I love, that we're both here, like we put ourselves there to connect and to get to the good stuff. We want you to heal. We want you to live this best life that you're here to do. We believe that you're special. We want to see you. We want you to feel validated. And I love that. I love that about you. And you are such a special human being to me. And so thank you so much for being here on this talk. And I hope you all enjoyed it. So, yeah.
Thank you for having me. It was really wonderful talking to you. I'm really impressed by the research that you've done, and you asked great questions.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's easy to do, and you guys go on his website and like ask me any questions. I didn't want to put out too much of my session there because it's very personal, it's very detailed. But I will end with this, that one of the past lives was a huge tropical bird flying over the rainforest. So I did feel what that felt like, but the only thing I could see below was the rainforest and the tips of my feathers. And I shared this with you, Jeroen, that the tips of my feathers, I'm going to turn the camera so you guys could see the shop, if I can figure out how to do that. So the tips of my feathers were that exact yellow and looked basically exactly like that from my point of view. So it wasn't intentional. It wasn't until a couple months later that I realized that connection. And so I thank you so much for an amazing session. And guys, if you can join us again next week, same time, Thursday at 11:30. We'll be having more guests, and next week we'll be talking about the book that we're reading as a group. So if you want more information about that, just connect with us. I'm going to show you. Sorry, Jeroen, for the plug for the next session.
No, go ahead.
But we're going to be reading, or we are reading, I'm Not Really a Waitress. It's by the co-founder, who's a woman of the OPI nail polish empire. So again, thank you so much. And you guys check out Jeroen, and I hope you all have a beautiful day. So, and
Thank you, Carrie.
rewatch.
Thanks for the work you do.
All right. Bye, Jeroen.